Amazing reunion. Millionaire discovers ex-husband selling watermelons 5 years later. A touching tale of love and ambition. Rebecca Turner glanced at the road signs blurring past as she drove through the familiar Texas countryside, her heart a storm of excitement and dread. Only 5 years had passed since she transformed her life from waitressing in a small diner to running a multi-million-dollar tech startup. Yet, returning to her hometown for a networking event for women entrepreneurs felt like a betrayal of the very grit that had brought her this far. The memories clung to her like the heavy heat of the sun, sweet yet suffocating, and so intertwined with her past failures. Her thoughts inevitably drifted to Jake, her ex-husband, whose dreams of farming once thrived alongside theirs. He had always envisioned a simpler life, filled with the smells of fresh earth and late-night starry skies, while she had yearned for high-rise views and boardroom deals. His departure had been swift and uncompromising, Jake convinced he needed to carve his own path, leaving her in the wake of his decision. Those words had stung, a reminder of how divergent their ambitions had become. As she entered the town, a well-timed breeze rustled through the trees lining Main Street, making her shoulders tense. She parked in front of her childhood home, a quaint brick house, covered in twinkling Christmas lights, even in August. It had once felt like a sanctuary, but now it felt like a relic, holding echoes of laughter mingled with the sharp ache of longing. Hoping to anchor herself in familiar warmth, she made her way to the roadside stand selling watermelons, where summer's sweetness collided with her bittersweet nostalgia. And there he was, Jake, the stubbly, handsome figure she had once known so intimately, now wearing the sun's mark of labor and contentment. He laughed with customers, a gentle, rustic charm radiating from him. A tightness gripped her heart. How could he look so at ease, so fulfilled, while she grappled with the weight of endless corporate demands? As she approached, emotions churned, making her hesitations feel heavier than the humid air around them. The familiar lines of his face spoke of stories untold. She hesitated, heart racing at the thought of rekindling old flames. "Jake," she finally began, her voice trembling, uncertain. They started talking, tentatively rekindling shared memories. But with each passing moment, that familiar tug-of-war inside her intensified. Ambition versus contentment. Jake's simple joys perplexed her. Could she relinquish the corporate ladder for a life steeped in earthy satisfaction? His answers reflected acceptance, but in her mind she heard the ambitious refrain that had carried her through the tough nights alone. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the sun beginning to set, casting long shadows, a revelation interrupted their rhythm. A family secret about Jake's lineage revealed legacies intertwining dreams and disappointments. Their conversation halted, leaving a heavy silence punctuating the air. Dust motes floated lazily in the waning light, underscoring the gravity of unspoken questions that hung like thick fog between them. Were they meant to walk parallel paths, or was it time to bridge the gap? Each heartbeat felt amplified in her ears, drowning out the background laughter of children at play. All at once, as the bittersweet longing swirled around her heart, Rebecca confronted an anguishing truth. The choices they had made, the lives they had built, were they truly meant to be separate? Beneath the fading Texas sun, they stood on the brink of decisions that could reshape everything, filled with the weight of unresolved emotions, uncertainties, and what-ifs. The silence stretched uncomfortably between them, both feeling the pull of unresolved feelings and futures that had diverged so significantly. Rebecca studied Jake's face. The sun highlighted the depth of his features, revealing an authenticity she had often envied, a lightness that felt foreign to her. "Jake," she began, her voice catching slightly in her throat. How did you end up here, selling watermelons? A rueful smile played on his lips. It's actually quite enjoyable. You'd be surprised how fulfilling it is to help people find something good, something fresh. The rhythms of this life, it's different, but it feels right. His words reverberated inside her, a quiet resonance that plunged her into a reflection on success and fulfillment. Hadn't she once dreamed of finding something good in her own life? The weight of her corporate responsibilities pressed down even harder. What about your dreams? The farming, the expansion ideas? She asked softly, probing the well of unfulfilled aspirations. Her ambition fought to rise above, but was met with the stark clarity in Jake's gaze. I realized my dreams didn't have to include sky-high ambitions. Sometimes success is rooted in simplicity. He met her eyes intently, sparking a flicker of questioning in her heart. His acceptance stirred seeds of doubt in her mind. Did ambition bring peace, or did it keep her tethered to an exhausting chase? The visions of her grand office glistened like a distant mirage now, overshadowed by the sweetness of what stood before her. The late afternoon sun cast a golden hue, reminding her of every moment she chose to chase accolades over inner peace. Memories of countless sleepless nights and laser-focused meetings loomed like ghosts, pushing her to confront the truth she had ignored. "Is that what you think of my life? A chase?" she asked, defensive, yet aware of her vulnerability. The emphasis was placed not on Jake's words, but on her mental battle, a need for success versus a longing for genuine happiness. He sighed, folding his arms as if to protect his heart from the storm brewing between them. "Rebecca, I never meant it that way. Your achievements are incredible, but is the price worth the outcome?" It hit her like a wave, the challenge rooted deep in the irony of her life's choices. Had she defined success through the lens of others' perceptions? Every accomplishment felt like a trophy, yet here was Jake, content with what others might label as stagnation. This challenge loomed larger than herself. Was she strong enough to reconsider her definitions? With an urge to break free from her encaged thoughts, Rebecca asked, "What if I came back to the town? What if I wanted to redefine my path?" The words tumbled out before she could process their weight, but in voicing them, she felt a strange sense of liberation. Jake regarded her with an unexpected softness. "If that's what you feel you need, then try it. Explore the possibilities. But be careful not to confuse choice with obligation." In that moment, the atmosphere shifted. Rebecca felt as though she stood at a crossroads. The past and future lay before her like the fields surrounding them, waiting to be tilled anew. "Jake," she whispered, her heart pounding with urgency, what if we explored this together?" His surprise was palpable. "You mean as partners?" "Not just that," she clarified, realization dawning on her. "In a business sense. What if you showed me how you make this work? What if we took a chance to blend tech and farming to create something unique? It could forge new paths for both of us." The air crackled with potential, yet doubt lingered. What would that mean for their past? For her present? Her pulse raced as they stood poised on the edge of change, one that could liberate or ensnare them. As dusk settled, they exchanged glances laden with unsaid promises and fears. Two paths raised from the ground, infusing them with possibility. The question remained: would they take the leap, or would ambition tear them apart once more? A sense of urgency surged within Rebecca as the weight of potential forged ahead. They were standing on the precipice of a venture that blurred boundaries. Could they dare to traverse both business and personal lines once again? The next morning, Rebecca awoke with the sharpness of purpose slicing through her initial grogginess. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, spilling warmth across the room as reality sank in. A decision lay ahead of her that felt both thrilling and terrifying. She had extended an olive branch to Jake, inviting him into a collaboration that could irrevocably alter her life, a prospect that both exhilarated and terrified her. She moved through her morning routine with an unexpected clarity. Each action, brushing her teeth, brewing coffee, choosing her clothes, became an exercise in determination. She chose the outfit that made her feel powerful yet approachable, bridging the gap between her past life and the potential she saw in farming innovation. Arriving at the market felt surreal. The air carried a hint of earthiness, mixed with the sweet, refreshing scent of ripe watermelon. Jake was already there, arranging the fruit with practiced efficiency. Watching him, Rebecca noted the ease with which he moved, his hands deftly manipulating the produce with a tenderness that she found surprisingly attractive. There was an intimacy in the way he placed each watermelon, a stark contrast to the hurried, cutthroat atmosphere of corporate meetings that she had left behind. "Morning," he said, his eyes brighter than the sky above. "Ready to talk ideas?" His enthusiasm was infectious, and yet doubt fluttered in the back of her mind. "I've been thinking a lot about what we could do," she said, choosing her words carefully. "But I want to make sure this is about more than just business for us. If we're doing this together, we need to be clear about expectations." Jake nodded, his expression serious. "I'm all in, but you do realize this means we have to navigate more than just market strategies, right? He let the sentence dangle, the weight of their shared past simmering between them. The implications of what they were proposing pushed at the edges of her thoughts. Could they truly separate personal attachments from professional ambitions? The scars of their past would not simply fade with the call to action. "What if we started with a pilot project?" Rebecca suggested, feeling a spark of confidence. "Something small that combines your approach to farming with my management skills. We could gather data, analyze methods, and then scale based on what works." Jake raised an eyebrow, a hint of intrigue flickering across his features. "You mean basically applying your corporate experience to this setting? That's a solid idea." He leaned against the stall, his arms crossed, and for a moment Rebecca felt the pull of something deeper than mere business. She had spent so long wrapped up in success metrics and boardroom battles that the honesty of Jake's world was like a breath of fresh air. Mixed emotions tangled with ambition, and she wondered whether this project was an escape route or a path to something richer, something she hadn't defined yet. Their discussion began to flow, naturally, touching on marketing strategies and production efficiencies. Ideas formulating in a mixture of enthusiasm and tentative preparation sparked a sense of camaraderie. Yet an undercurrent of tension remained, straining against the fabric of intent. As they mapped out potential plans on a notepad strewn with sketches and timelines, Rebecca experienced a moment of sharp clarity. This venture could confront not just her professional limitations, but also her personal ones. Could she truly redefine her life alongside the man she once loved but had lost sight of in the haze of ambition? The sounds of the market swirled around them, shouts of vendors, laughter of children, the clatter of carts, creating a tapestry of normalcy while their lives hung in the balance, suspended by the gravity of choices made so long ago. As the sun climbed higher, Rebecca frowned, focused on Jake. "I want this, but we have to promise to be open, to address any issues, any personal baggage along the way." Jake straightened, the shadows of their unresolved past shimmering in the corners of his eyes. "Agreed, but it won't be easy." The truth settled heavily between them. This venture could lead to either healing or deeper wounds. Would they find the right balance, or would the emotional weight of their history threaten to crush their new undertaking? Rebecca's heartbeat quickened as a realization struck her. It was more than business now. It was about reconnecting, mentally and emotionally, in a way she hadn't expected. Could they bridge the chasm of their previous intimacy while navigating this uncharted territory? "Let's meet every morning, same time, to track our progress and touch base about everything else," Rebecca suggested, commanding her voice to betray none of her insecurities. Jake smiled, a hint of relief lighting his face. "I'd like that." As they made tentative plans, the conversation lingered on the cusp of professional partnership and potential renewal. Then, just as Rebecca began to imagine the contours of their future collaboration, a flurry of distractions and unexpected challenges began to emerge around them. Customers demanding attention, a shipment of spoiling watermelons arriving, and the reality of starting a new venture weighing heavily as the day unfolded. Could they endure the complexities ahead, blending desires, ambitions, and unresolved feelings? The stakes were higher than ever, and the true challenge of navigating this new business and perhaps rekindling old flames lay just ahead. Rebecca's next morning mirrored the previous one, but this time a potent mix of anxiety and eagerness swirled around her. Each step toward the market pulsed with anticipation, the sense of fresh produce and the chatter of early risers enveloping her like the warm sunlight that fought through the morning fog. However, Rebecca didn't merely enter the market this time. She stepped into a world where her concepts of success might be radically redefined. As she approached the stall, her heart raced at the sight of Jake. There was a weight to the air between them, an unspoken acknowledgement of their goals colliding with the shadows of their past. Jake's presence grounded her in a way that was unsettling yet invigorating. "Hey, you're on time," he greeted, his casual tone contrasting with the electricity running through her. "Wouldn't miss it," Rebecca replied, a determined smile crossing her face. The agenda began to churn inside her. Business, creativity, connection, each idea flashing like a neon sign in the corner of her mind. "Let's dive into the pilot project," she suggested, feeling a sense of authority surging. "We need something tangible right away to test the waters." Jake leaned back thoughtfully, arms crossed again, piquing her curiosity. "What do you have in mind?" His eyes held both apprehension and excitement, illuminating the path ahead. Rebecca's mind raced through various aspects of their project, the possible locations, the crops they could choose, the narratives they could share with customers. What if we create a subscription box model? Fresh produce delivered with a personal touch, customized notes, recipes, the story of the farm. "That would give us an edge," Jake replied, nodding as segments of their plan starting to coalesce. In this interaction, Rebecca felt herself sharpening, her instincts honing in on what needed to be done. As they sketched the outlines of their project, Rebecca identified something within Jake. He exuded passion that aligned with her own vision. Yet, just when confidence built, a wave of doubt crashed in. Could she let herself truly rely on him? Would she overlook the past in pursuit of a shared dream? The idea of leaning into their connection, personally and professionally, felt both exhilarating and terrifying. "Let's name our venture, something that captures our essence," Jake suggested, his brow slightly furrowed, as if already considering potential names. Rebecca paused, the concept of identity resonating deeply. A name wasn't just a label, it represented their ambition, their reconciliation with the past. But how could they encapsulate both their histories and aspirations in a single word? She mused out loud. What about Harvest Union? It signifies coming together, a synthesis of ideas. Jake's face broke into a grin. "I like it. It speaks to collaboration and the fruit of our labor, literally." Their brainstorming thrived and drove her forward. Yet Rebecca's mind flickered to darker thoughts. The very choices they made might anchor them in a deeply personal struggle. Would they enable each other to grow, or would past wounds undermine their new ambitions? As they finalized plans for the box, deciding to include samples of unique produce and stories from the farm, Rebecca felt herself evolving in ways she hadn't anticipated. She realized this project was not merely a new business, it was a chance to redefine her integrity, to confront her vulnerability head-on, and to break free from the corporate persona that had so long cloaked her identity. With each small decision, she began to see the layers of her own character being exposed, unraveling the tightly wound ambition that had previously defined her. Would she step fully into this new role, shunning the remnants of an old life for something more authentic? The day proceeded, and every engaged conversation about the project took on a life of its own, building bridges between past resentments and hopeful possibilities. As things became more intense, Rebecca recognized the undeniable chemistry sparking between her and Jake, dynamism mixing with nostalgia as they laughed and debated. Yet, navigating personal feelings while constructing a foundation for their venture pushed her towards decisions that felt fraught with risk. Something stirred within her, a voice urging her to confront the past, to not shy away from demands nor desires entwined with unresolved emotions. "What's next?" Jake prompted, stirring her from reflection as the day began to wane. "Let's launch the first box in
3 weeks," Rebecca declared, a sense of iron determination anchoring her voice. "But let's also schedule time to discuss the past, our past, each week, to keep our paths clear and intentional." Jake's eyes widened momentarily, a glimmer of understanding dawning. "That's a big step, but I think it's necessary." After their exchange, Rebecca left the market with both hope and trepidation gnawing at her. The impending challenge of blending professional aspirations with unresolved feelings for Jake promised to be far more arduous than anything she had encountered in corporate meetings. As she stepped into the evening light, Rebecca resolved to embrace whatever transformations lay ahead, an exploration of bonds that could either shatter her or lead her back to something beautiful. The stakes were set, but would confronting their past streamline their future? Or would the weight of history become too burdensome to bear as they ventured into this uncharted territory? Rebecca awoke the following morning, a crucible of thoughts swirling in her mind. The sun filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows that mirrored her internal uncertainty. Today felt pivotal. The anticipation of their project loomed like a storm cloud ready to burst. Each tick of the clock was a gentle reminder that time waited for no one, especially in business. She navigated through her morning routine with a heightened awareness of her surroundings. The smell of brewed coffee wafted through the air, yet it did little to calm the fluttering in her stomach. As she stood in front of the mirror applying her lipstick, she caught her own reflection, determined, yet with an undercurrent of hesitation. Beneath the surface, a tidal wave of fear crashed against her resolve. Would the past, with all its complexities, pull her under? The market hummed with vibrant energy, but today it felt somehow different. As she approached their stall, her stride quickened. Rebecca's mind raced, indulging in the possibility of success, mingled with the burden of her history with Jake. They were towing a delicate line between partnership and something more ambiguous. Could they truly navigate both realms without derailing the venture and themselves? "Good morning," Jake greeted her enthusiastically, a slight scruff on his chin highlighted by the morning light. His warmth melted the icy grip of apprehension around her heart. "Ready to crank out some ideas?" Rebecca replied, her voice steady but her insides churning. They settled into the day's work, sketching out the nitty-gritty details of their subscription box project. Yet, amidst their shared enthusiasm, Rebecca couldn't help but feel the electric tension threading between them, something unresolved, lingering like an unsung note waiting for resolution. "Okay, let's talk logistics," Jake said. "If we want to launch in 3 weeks, we need to finalize suppliers by the end of the week." As they delved into specifics, pricing, possible clients, and marketing strategies, Rebecca felt a newfound clarity unfurling within her. Every minute spent in this proactive, forward-thinking mode pulled her further away from her past regrets. Yet, as plans started to take shape, nostalgic memories of their former relationship threaded themselves into the work, complicating her focus. "Rebecca, are you okay?" Jake's voice broke through her thoughts, concern lining his brow. "You seem distracted." She took a breath, summoning the courage to address the complexities swirling within her. We have so much at stake. I want this to work, but—" Jake leaned in, his focus unwavering. "But it's hard to separate our history from our goals," she confessed, heart racing. The weight of her truth hung heavily in the air, intricate and raw. A flicker of understanding crossed his face. "I get that. We can't ignore what we've been through, but maybe that's our strength, too." Rebecca pondered over his words, contemplating how she might integrate their past into their new venture, rather than allowing it to weigh them down. Could exploring their shared history render them stronger as partners? "I propose we create a memory section in each subscription box," she offered, excitement threading back into her voice. "A little piece of our journey, a story about overcoming challenges. It could resonate with customers who may relate to struggles, making the produce more than just food. It becomes part of their stories too." Jake nodded, his eyes lighting up. "That's brilliant. It adds depth." Yet she sensed a trace of trepidation there as well. "But are you sure you want to revisit those memories?" "I have to," Rebecca replied firmly. "If we're going to forge ahead, I needed to face them and embrace who I am today." Her assertion hung between them, igniting a flicker of hope tinged with fear. A moment of silence passed as she felt the truth land heavy in the space between them. This opportunity could help her reclaim her narrative, one that entwined her past angst with their burgeoning partnership. Each box they crafted was a step toward a new path, but it also meant confronting unhealed scars. As they set to work on the first draft of the memory stories, tension swelled, a blend of excitement for the future and an arduous task of revisiting old wounds. Each word they crafted felt like a mix of catharsis and courage, uncovering layers she hadn't yet fully explored. In the process, Rebecca confronted her fears, suddenly aware that revealing her vulnerabilities could be her greatest asset. But would it be as liberating as she hoped, or would it unearth more than she was prepared to face? The day, heavy with both promise and uncertainty, unfolded, a test of conviction and authenticity. As they wrapped up their session, Rebecca shook off the fatigue, determination rekindling. "We need to talk about our week-to-week check-ins," she reminded Jake, her voice imbued with intent. "Yeah, let's make it a priority," Jake agreed, yet a shadow flitted across his expression. What lay beneath the surface needed examination, and they both sensed it. Rebecca walked away later, the weight of their past lingering, but feeling more fragile. Could the opportunity, revelations serve as building blocks, or would they still fracture under the pressure? Tomorrow would beckon with more questions, and Rebecca felt an undeniable gravity pulling her back to Jake, both exhilarating and terrifying. Would her journey into their past illuminate the path forward, or would it drown her in nostalgia? The stakes were high as clarity loomed on the horizon. The next morning seeped through her window with the same uncertainty that had filled her the day prior, yet Rebecca felt a subtle shift within. She had faced her fears and ambiguities, and now they had become less daunting shadows and more like challenging hills to climb. The air felt charged with potential as she prepared for another day alongside Jake. Their partnership, once mired in the uncertainties of their past, had begun to crystallize into something tangible, an enterprise fueled by shared dreams and a history that, while complicated, could become a source of strength. The prospect of creating something meaningful ignited a new flame inside Rebecca, and today she intended to stoke it further, even if it meant traversing emotional landscapes again. When she arrived at the market, Rebecca was greeted by the familiar hum of bustling activity, but today felt different yet again. With renewed purpose, she approached their stall, ready to embrace both their project and her own transformative journey. As she adjusted the banner promoting their subscription box, she felt a thrill. This was not just a business endeavor, but a canvas to express their intertwined stories. "Hey, ready to tackle our next steps?" Jake's enthusiastic demeanor provided a stark contrast to the uncertainty from their previous discussions. The warmth in his eyes encouraged her to lean into that growing dynamic between them. "Absolutely," she said, her resolve firm. "I was thinking we should finalize our supplier list this morning. We need to ensure we meet that launch timeline." "Good idea," he said, pulling out a notepad. Yet Rebecca detected a flicker of apprehension behind his eyes. They both understood that during this venture, the personal would inevitably bleed into the professional. She took a moment before plunging into business talks, using the interlude as an opportunity to address the unspoken tension. "Jake, about the memory section we discussed," she started carefully.
I think it's crucial that we both share our own stories in that context. Do you feel ready to put your experiences out there? He hesitated, the sharpness of his jaw tightening momentarily. You know, it's not easy for me to reflect on everything, but I see what you're saying. I mean, if we're going to create something authentic, we both need to contribute. Rebecca recognized that his struggle mirrored her own battles with vulnerability. What if we framed it in a way that emphasizes growth? Maybe we highlight how our pasts shaped our approaches to challenges today. Her suggestion was both a risk and a lifeline. It offered Jake a way to confront his own history while attributing value to it. That might help, he said slowly, the edges of tension in his face softening a bit. As they mapped out their personal narratives to share, Rebecca discovered something unexpected. The act of planning the memories not only brought back past scars, but also displayed how far she had come. Each memory transformed into a stepping stone, illuminating her strength and resilience. With each story they crafted, she felt empowered. She dared to believe that embracing their histories would strengthen them as business partners. But what if it didn't? A thread of worry lingered, whispering doubts about how their revelations would affect their dynamic. They were standing on the precipice of professional and personal merge. Would this journey be reciprocal, or risk one of them falling into old patterns? Let's agree to keep checking in about our comfort levels while we write these stories, Jake suggested, pulling her back into the present. The last thing I want is for either of us to feel overwhelmed under the weight of our pasts. Agreed, Rebecca responded, appreciating his willingness to forge ahead collaboratively. Here, they were building something significant, something based on shared experiences rather than fractured histories. Yet, beneath her emerging confidence lay the persistent echo of doubt she had yet to fully silence. As they began to populate their memory section with drafts, Rebecca found herself spiraling deeper into thought. Each frail recollection evoked a mix of nostalgia and a hint of excitement for what lay ahead. Yet, she could not shake the feeling that addressing past wounds might also amplify the germs of more. What if cracking those shells meant exposing underlying fractures in their partnership? With each sentence they crafted, she felt both exhilarated and fearful of the deeper truths she might unearth. Those truths that could renovate or dismantle their current collaboration. As they broke for lunch, Rebecca leaned back against the wooden stall, the chaos of the market sprawling out before her. The air smelled a little sweeter today, perhaps infused with hope. But doubts lingered like wisps of smoke in her mind. Could their project endure the weight of their revelations, or would exploring their past plunge them into chaos? This was her moment of truth, and it beckoned like a flame dancing in the wind, promising warmth but also threatening to burn. As they resumed their work, Rebecca felt a jolt of realization. Sometimes uncovering buried truths could be the catalyst for unprecedented growth. Yet she knew the pain could cut deep. Would they emerge from this vulnerability emboldened or shattered by what they unearthed? Tomorrow's meeting promised further explorations of complexities, and Rebecca felt both trepidation and resolve intertwining tighter than ever. Rebecca arrived the next morning with a tidal wave of emotions, anticipation battling with foreboding. Today was the day they would delve deeper into their collaborative storytelling. She found herself at the market earlier than usual, the crisp morning air filling her lungs with a sense of purpose, mingling with the lingering unease that had unsettled her recently. As she set up the stall, she glanced over at Jake, who was busy double-checking the inventory boxes. Something about the way he moved, with a mix of determination and apprehension, resonated within her. It reminded her that they were standing on the edge of revelation, treading water that could either buoy them or pull them under. "Ready to dive in?" Jake asked, catching her eye, his casual tone belied by the tension in his frame. "Let's do this," Rebecca said, her voice firmer than she felt. She adjusted her stance, feeling both physically and mentally prepared. Today was pivotal. Their partnership hinged not only on what they created, but on how they confronted their own narratives. They began with Jake's accounts, the memories that shaped him, the challenges he faced in life and business. Each story flowed as he spoke, revealing layers she had never seen before. It was like peeling back the bark of a tree to find the rich wood beneath. Yet with each revelation, Rebecca felt a surge of her own memories vying for attention. "It's freeing to share this, isn't it?" Jake said, looking reflective. "Yes, but also a little scary," she admitted. "It's one thing to share stories. It's another to lay them bare, vulnerable to critique and interpretation." Jake nodded in understanding, his eyes reflecting the same concern. "We risk exposing ourselves, but it might also be what brings us closer." With that, Rebecca felt a decisive shift inside her. In order for their partnership to thrive, they needed to embrace discomfort together. It was more than storytelling, it was creating a shared narrative rife with authenticity. They moved on to her memories. As she spoke, she felt those quiet, painful edges of her past emerge, the moments that had defined her, shaped her resilience. Vulnerability laced her voice as she described her struggles and victories, unveiling how they fed her determination to forge ahead. "There were times I didn't believe I could overcome my challenges," she shared, her heart racing as she pressed on. "But those experiences built a foundation. I want that to resonate in our project. I don't want us to just tell stories. I want people to feel how those stories can alter their lives." Jake leaned toward her, his attention fierce. "You're right, this is bigger than just us," he said, conviction spilling into his voice. "It's about empowering others." Rebecca felt the transformation the moment she acknowledged that sentiment. The weight of her fears began to lift, replaced by a shared drive to reach others through their experiences. Yet an unsettling thought began to creep in. Had they both exposed too much too soon? As lunch approached, they decided to take a break, their drafts strewn across the table, overflowing with thoughts and ideas. They sat in silence for a moment, the rhythm of the market creating a familiar hum. But a new intensity had filled the air. Rebecca sensed the opportunity unfolding beneath her. They could channel their fears into a shared mission. But what if their openness left them raw? The prospect of losing the very chemistry that brought them together gnawed at her. "Jake," she ventured slowly, "what if our stories resonate in ways we never intended? What if the rawness we share overwhelms us?" He paused, contemplating her words. "We can't predict everything, but we have to trust each other. Isn't that what builds real partnership?" She knew he was right, but the shadow of uncertainty still loomed. Could the act of vulnerability strengthen their connection, or would it fracture the precious balance they had just begun to establish? As they resumed their writing, Rebecca pondered the paradox of strength through vulnerability. Sitting side by side, they were on the cusp of something monumental, yet, in their eagerness to share, an unsettling truth lingered, that sometimes exploring the depths of personal history could tear open fresh wounds. And just as that thought settled in her mind, Rebecca's phone buzzed violently against the table. An unexpected email, the subject line glaring at her, "Urgent, supplier issues." The unexpected jolt flooded her system with fresh anxiety. Just as they had started to find their feet, complications threatened to destabilize everything. What did this mean for their dream? They were about to venture into uncharted waters, and Rebecca's resolve ignited anew. This path, filled with its inherent dangers, could also lead to immense growth, but first they needed to confront the imminent storm before them. With a sense of determination brewing, Rebecca looked at Jake. "We need a plan. Let's figure this out together." Would this unexpected challenge turn into an opportunity, building resilience within their partnership, or would it prove too much for them to handle? It was time to find out. Rebecca's heart raced as she opened the email. The message from the supplier was terse, outlining a sudden shortage that threatened to upend their carefully laid plans. Instinctively, she glanced at Jake, who seemed to transform as he caught the urgency in her expression. His features tightened, a flash of concern crossing his face. "What's going on?" he asked, leaning forward. "It's not good," she replied, her fingers tapping on the screen as she read through the details once more. "Our primary supplier has run into issues. They're cutting our order by half. If we can't find an alternative quickly, we might not have enough stock for the next 2 weeks." Jake let out a low whistle, the room's atmosphere shifting as they both processed the implications. Fear of failure hung heavily between them, a palpable weight that threatened to suffocate the momentum they had started to build. Yet something else brewed beneath the surface, a flicker of resolve ignited by their earlier conversations about vulnerability and authenticity. "Okay, we can work through this," Jake said, infusing determination into his voice. But Rebecca could sense the lingering doubt lingering just below the surface. His confidence was inspiring, but it also filled her with an acute awareness that they were at a crossroads. "Let's brainstorm alternatives. I have some contacts, and maybe we can find someone who can fill in for the supplier. It sounds simple, but—" She hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of her previous decisions, her mind racing with possibilities and barricades. "But I can't guarantee we won't run into problems again. This business requires constant juggling." Jake's brow furrowed. "It's true. We are in a cycle of challenges and solutions, but that's what makes this a partnership, right? We tackle risks together." His eyes met hers, igniting a spark of rebellion against doubt. Rebecca realized his words weren't just meant to assure her. They were a reflection of her own evolving narrative. The time had come to confront her fears, not just for her business, but for the partnership they had built on shared vulnerabilities. "A partnership means facing uncertainties head-on, doesn't it?" she mused, thoughtfully. "We can't shy away from this challenge. We need to be strategic and bold." Jake nodded, an unmistakable gleam in his eyes. "Let's break down what we can control, what we can change right now." The conversation shifted, fueled by a new sense of purpose. They scribbled down names, numbers, and old contacts in the margins of their rough drafts, their dialogue infused with an urgency that felt galvanizing. Each idea seemed to untangle the knots of anxiety pressing against them. Rebecca felt a pang of realization. This wasn't just about overcoming supply issues. It was a lesson in resilience, a proving ground for the bond they were forming. They weren't merely storytellers anymore. They were apprentices in the art of partnership itself. As the market buzzed around them, she became aware of the sounds beneath the fray, calls of vendors, laughter of children, and the rustling of produce being sold and traded, all weaving into a vibrant tapestry of resilience and adaptation. More than orders and products, they were investing in each other, growing stronger through adversity. She began to see each challenge as not just a barrier, but as a defining moment waiting to shape both of them into more than they began as. The urgency of their situation compelled Rebecca to acknowledge an unsettling truth. The deeper they dove into collaboration, the greater the stakes became. Could they maintain their authenticity through chaos? What if the pressure fractured their raw openness instead of forging deeper connections? Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from a familiar supplier, one she hadn't thought about in years. "Hey, I can accommodate some orders after all. Give me a call." A sense of hope washed over her, but so did the fear of risking attachment to a past that had been fraught with complications. Rebecca's breath hitched. This was the push she needed to act decisively as their moment of truth hovered on the horizon. "Jake," she said, her voice steadying with determination, "this could really be our lifeline. But if we pursue this, I need to be clear. I'm prepared to navigate the rocky waters of my past, just as we're navigating this present storm." He blinked, the acceptance shifting into clarity. "Let's make the call together. This is how we'll prove we're committed to both each other and the venture." As they dialed the number, Rebecca felt a quiet strength settle within her. They were no longer merely storytellers. They were co-creators of their fate, each word, each decision, carving a path toward their future. But as the ringing tone filled the air, one question loomed larger than the rest in her mind. Would their collaboration withstand the reverberations of truth that could ripple from the past they so carefully constructed?
Rebecca held her breath as the phone rang, the sound slicing through the chaotic buzz of the market around them. She felt a mix of anticipation and dread twisting in her stomach. The decision to reach out to her old supplier was a gamble, and with every ring that echoed through her ear, she wrestled with the weight of her past. She had cherished friendships with suppliers when she first launched her business, but the fallout from her divorce had sent ripples through those connections. The aftermath had left her wary, protective of her heart and her professional life. Yet here she was, towing the line between risk and reward. "Come on, pick up," Jake muttered under his breath, mirroring her tension. With each passing moment, she felt the pressure to prove herself intensify. She was not just trying to save their current crisis, but reclaim her place in a world that felt foreign since her personal upheaval. The call finally connected, a familiar voice sounding on the other end. "Rebecca, it's been a while." Her heart sank. There was warmth in his voice, but also a layer of caution, as if he too remembered the shards left by their shared past. "Hi, Leo. I got your message. Can you really accommodate our order?" "Yes, but," he hesitated, "there's a gap in what I can do. I need a favor in return." Hearing that familiar tone brought back memories of old negotiations, both productive and painful. She could feel her pulse quicken as the comfort of the past twined with the uncertainty of now. She looked at Jake, whose expression blended concern with curiosity. The stakes didn't just involve business anymore. They dived into personal waters she had avoided for years. "What do you need?" She took a deep breath, attempting to keep her voice steady despite the fluttering anxiety. "I want to talk. About what happened. About us." The words struck her like a cold wind, an invitation to dredge up a past she thought she'd neatly put away. "This isn't the time for a walk down memory lane," she snapped, frustration bubbling to the surface alongside palpable fear. His sigh echoed in her ear. "Rebecca, I get it. I know this isn't easy, but if we're going to do business, we need to clear the air." Clear the air? It felt like a mandate she wasn't ready to comply with. But lurking beneath her immediate resistance was also a challenge, a whisper nudging her to confront her fears, the very core of her growth as a partner and a professional. Integration of personal challenges and professional demands seemed to swirl together, forcing her to face uncomfortable truths. She had to decide. Could she bypass this confrontation in pursuit of a smooth business deal, or should she embrace this moment as an opportunity for growth? Fighting the instinct to distract herself with the logistics, she shared a pained look with Jake. Their partnership would be tested here, not only in terms of financial solvency, but emotional integrity. She began to sense that their success hinged not only on the literal supplies they obtained, but on fostering relationships built on honesty rather than avoidance. "Let's talk face to face," she finally said, her voice stronger than she felt inside. "We can set something up, but I need to know you can commit to this order." She could hear Leo's sharp intake of breath before he answered, "All right, I'll hold the stock for you." As the call ended, Rebecca dropped her phone onto the table with a mixture of resolve and fear. What did I just do? Jake placed his hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "You just took control of your narrative, Rebecca. This could lead to insights neither of you were expecting." What Jake didn't know was how much this situation felt like opening Pandora's box. Rebecca realized confronting what lay in the past might be as critical to her development as tackling the immediate issues at hand. She sensed that the deeper emotional investment they articulated could either render their partnership stronger or pull it apart completely. With the quality of their products at stake, so too was the foundation of mutual respect they'd been cultivating. "Are we ready for this?" she asked, a tremor threading through her spine. "We'll be fine as long as we approach it together," Jake replied, his voice steady. This moment held both danger and promise, and as darkness descended over the market, Rebecca pondered the unpredictable water ahead. In the back of her mind, another unsettling thought began to unfurl. Would the truth of her past strengthen their partnership, or would it shatter everything she'd worked for? The opportunity for growth awaited, but so did the risk of unraveling everything.
And yet, she knew, facing the past could be her greatest act of courage yet, a true test of authenticity in an evolving partnership. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was a picture of a watermelon stand, bright and inviting, a reminder of simpler times. Clenching her jaw, she prepared herself for what came next, a collision of the past and present that could irrevocably alter the future of both their business and her heart. The day Rebecca faced Jake once more was known as the turning point. It marked a delicate balance between her past as a corporate titan and her present ambitions intertwined with evolving partnerships. Standing outside the cafe where her meeting with Leo was arranged, she felt her heart pound in her chest like a drum. She had agreed to redefine her relationship with the past. No longer would it overshadow her future. The cafe bustled with life, an ironic contrast to the turbulence stirring within her. Every voice seemed to echo her uncertainties, yet amid that chaos she found solace in the steadfast presence of Jake beside her. His supportive demeanor held the weight of their shared ambitions. "Ready?" he asked, his gaze steady as he positioned himself as her tether to the present. "Let's do this," she replied, feeling adrenaline surge through her veins. The moment they settled into their seats across from Leo, it felt as if a dam had broken open. Leo's familiar features brought with them a swell of nostalgia that she had long tried to quell. "Rebecca, it's good to see you," Leo began, each word drenched in a mixture of warmth and wariness. The scars of their past intertwined with his manner as he probed carefully. "It's been a while," she replied, her backbone reigniting with resolution. "I hope we can discuss business before everything else." As they traded awkward pleasantries, Rebecca steeled herself. A rebuttal of old emotions was critical. "We have a significant supply issue. Can we secure that order you mentioned?" Leo's brow knitted tight, and for a moment she felt the tension pulse around them. "I can hold the stock, but I have to be transparent. The last deal, it ended poorly. I need to know we can work together without turmoil." His words "ended poorly" reverberated in her mind, a flicker of shame against her will to establish control over her narrative, both professional and personal. "I recognize that," she said, her voice unwavering. "Things fell apart then, but I'm not that person anymore. I've grown. Evidence lies in the business I'm building with Jake." She watched Leo's expression shift, a mix of acknowledgement and contemplation crossing his face. "You're taking a new approach? That's promising," he said, leaning forward, his interest piqued. Jake seized the moment, extending his openness with quiet confidence. "We want to make this work, Leo. That's why transparency is vital. You represent an essential part of our journey moving forward." Their commitment landed heavily in the air between them, a testament to the risk they were taking. Rebecca felt a newfound courage emanating from her partnership with Jake, a shared resolve housed in their mutual respect. "We'll create a set of guidelines for our collaboration. That way, boundaries are clear, and we can establish trust from the start," Rebecca proposed, a proactive tone weaving through her intentions. She was no longer just hoping for things to go right, she was strategically guiding them. Leo seemed to assess her, and for an instant Rebecca felt her heart race. This was more than a negotiation, it felt like reclaiming power over her past mistakes. "If we can write a new chapter, I'm on board," Leo responded, the tension dissipating slowly. "Let's put this behind us and focus on growing forward." The discussions shifted, morphing into logistical details, product specs, and market opportunities, a symphony of collaboration fueled by renewed trust. With each exchange, the pressure lifted like a dense fog, revealing the clarity of purpose she had long sought. As they finalized the order, Rebecca couldn't help but feel proud, not just of the business, but for embracing vulnerability in her personal life, taught through partnership with Jake. The act of confronting their past had fortified her professional landscape like roots that stabilize a growing tree. Walking back to their stall, she speculated about the transformative nature of the process. That was surprisingly easy, she said, allowing a smile to grace her lips. Maybe facing fears is when growth happens. Facing fears together makes all the difference, Jake responded, his confidence bolstering hers. You did that today. You proved to yourself and Leo that you're ready for this. The sun dipped lower in the sky as they returned to their market stall, now vibrant with the promise of a new venture, a subscription box reflecting their shared experiences and future aspirations. Let's focus on launching the first box soon, Rebecca proposed, the excitement bubbling within her. We have a story to tell, and it's time to share it. Jake leaned back, his eyes alight with enthusiasm. Absolutely. I can't wait for customers to see not just what we offer, but how our journey weaves into every produce box. With plans in motion, both Rebecca and Jake recognized this venture extended beyond profit margins. It embodied renewal, personal growth, and most importantly, it represented a partnership fortified by vulnerability, authenticity, and commitment. Rebecca felt a sense of solid confidence envelop her, a feeling that the woman who had once chased accolades could now balance aspiration with discovery, ambition with purpose. They had transformed forgotten stories into pathways of strength, standing at the forefront of an adventure that outshone their previous lives. Looking into the sunset, she understood that she had come to terms with the layers of her identity intertwined with Jake's. Together, they would engineer their own form of success, creating not only a marketplace, but a narrative threaded with resilience. As the twilight basked them in warmth, Rebecca Turner had finally found her space, not in the buzzy corporate competitions of the past, but in authentic connections built through heartfelt experiences. She had conquered her internal conflict, fully embracing her ability to innovate against all odds. Reflected in the amber glow of the market, both the past and present merged into an inspiring future. It was a harmonious blend, a true testament to her growth. As their stalls bustled with life around them, Rebecca felt the urge to share their budding enterprise, eager to let the world glimpse into the narrative they'd built. For those witnessing her journey, she had a message. You need. Subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that redefine growth and authenticity. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative journey, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to connect.